Greetings. Greetings, all viewers. I am Lisa Nicholson. I am the mental health coordinator at Oasis Church International and Oasis Community Development Center. I bring you greetings on behalf of our senior pastor, Cassandra V. Fullwood, and our entire church. We bring you greetings and welcome you to our mental health podcast. I'd like to thank our senior pastor for allowing us to be able to bring this podcast to you. And we surely hope that you will be blessed from this. Please share. If you are watching on Facebook, please share on Facebook. We are also on YouTube, and it is Oasis Church International, and we're in West Palm Beach, Florida. We are also on our website at oasischurchintl.org. You can watch us live there, but we are live, and I have a phenomenal young lady who will be our guest speaker. Today's podcast is on grief and loss and mental health. I know that there's been a lot of loss and grief. I would say much more than ever since the pandemic. So I feel that this is our second grief and loss podcast that we have brought to you. Actually, before it was live on Facebook, but this is our first podcast. So the live was a couple years ago, and we were talking about COVID and just the aftermath of COVID and people losing their loved ones due to the COVID pandemic. So we know now that there are still loved ones that are dying to COVID pandemic. We have suicide, individuals dying by suicide, and many family members that are dealing with that, and just the loss of loved ones as well as relationships. So I thought it was very befitting for us to circle back around and deal with grief and loss to help our community. So I am going to bring on stage Dr. Donna McCrea Godfrey, and she is a licensed therapist, and she will be our guest speaker. And the name of her business is Calming Storms LLC. And Donna is going to further introduce herself, talk about her credentials, as well as her business as it relates to therapy. So Donna, welcome.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. My name is Dr. McCrea Godfrey. I am actually a registered mental health intern. I have been doing advocacy and therapy approximately 30 years. My work actually started in advocacy, which that actually moved into the counseling realm. So I started the counseling with crisis counseling and law enforcement. And then I eventually moved into the therapy services. I also do training and consulting, as well as educational work in the community.
Okay, that's awesome. All right. So I even learned a little more about you. So you did a lot of crisis counseling. As a matter of fact, I think you did mention working with law enforcement to me before, but that is so awesome. So I'm so glad to have you here, Dr. Donna. And Dr. Donna and I met at a breakfast in Broward County. She is from Broward. And we met there, and she mentioned her passion for mental health and, wanted to get more involved in NAMI. And we just, kind of got a relationship from there. So thank you again, Donna. So I want to go ahead and delve into grief and loss. So just let us know, how long have you been counseling or into the specific area of grief?
In terms of grief and loss, as you mentioned, I previously worked for the sheriff's office as a victim services professional, and in that capacity, of course, you deal with survivors and piece. So in that regard, you're constantly dealing with grief and loss. Um,
Okay.
Essentially, what happened, I moved into individual therapy, working with individuals, and my focus became grief and loss.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So, I'm sure you can give us a lot of information on today. I just want to let the viewers know that she is experiencing some bad weather in
Yeah.
Broward right now. So it may be a little hiccups here and there. We did kind of lose you just a little bit, but we got you.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to just start out by asking if you can tell us the difference between grief, and when I say grief and loss, like the difference between death and loss of like a relationship, and we can delve into it a little different, a little later, but just the difference, because I know people grieve over different situations, and people grieve over money, people grieve over
Mhm.
losing a job, and all of that. So what is the difference between grief and loss, and with as it relates to death, and as it relates to grieving over a loss of a relationship?
Well, the difference is essentially when we lose a loved one, we have basically no, we basically won't have the future of spending with the loved one.
Hmm.
Whereas maybe with a loss of a relationship, there is possibly some type of hope. In terms of the reactions are very similar.
Hmm.
So, we can grieve the loss of a job. We can grieve the loss of a pet. We can even grieve the loss of life transitions,
Right.
which sometimes individuals often neglect to realize, yes, I'm moving through different stages of life, or watching others, like maybe older family members, transitioning through life stages and grieving like their move through life. So, yes, we can grieve those things, but the difference is the possibility of. Whereas in the loss of a loved one, the possibility is different.
That's good. That's really good. So thank you for clarifying that, because many people talk about grief, and I know that you can grieve over many different things, but the main purpose of this podcast, we're going to talk about grieving the death of loved ones. However, I do want us to definitely delve into the loss of some other things, and I like that you brought out life transitions as well. So we're going to go back to that and kind of talk about that a little. So if you could explain the grieving, but first let me ask you this, Dr. Donna, is there a difference between grief and loss?
There actually is. The
Okay.
grief is the emotion, the feeling, the
Okay.
effect you get from experiencing the loss. The loss itself is the actual event.
Okay. Okay, that's really, really good. All right. Loss is the event and grief is the emotions.
Mhm.
So, and I know they're not, so positive emotions, but I do want to ask you, talking about, positive and negative emotions, would you say that it is good to grieve?
It absolutely is good to grieve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So why is that?
Well, grief is natural, so that's why it's good to grieve. It's
Okay.
something that you essentially cannot get away from. If you do not grieve, it can become unhealthy,
Mm-hmm.
and it also can become something that can affect your physical health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. And then, I don't want to jump ahead of myself, so I'm going to wait because now I got a lot going on in my head. So,
Okay.
if you could explain the grieving process and the stages of grief. If we can kind of talk about that grieving process. So I just lost a loved one of mine, and what would be the first? Because let me just go back. I'm a certified chaplain,
Mm-hmm.
and study, the grieving process, because typically when you lose a loved one, a lot of families call upon a chaplain, and I
Mm-hmm.
guess it depends, where you're located as well. Like you have the experience with law enforcement, whether it's jail or somewhere where the person is when they find out that the person has passed away. So I wanted to kind of find out about the different stages, because we are normally called in as chaplains, that we're called into jail, we're called into hospitals, we're called to homes. So we have to understand, the different stages that people are at. So if you can kind of break those stages down.
Okay, so there are essentially 6 stages of grief. We deal with like the denial, you deal with the anger, you deal with the guilt, you deal with actually the numbness, the confusion, the bargaining, the questioning, the depression. But there has over the years been other stages that have been added to the grief process,
Okay.
where they have said that some people, they actually try to piece together other other pieces of the grief process.
Okay.
So what happens essentially is, I don't like to say there is a process to
Mm-hmm.
grief, because in going through the stages, what happens is people generally fluctuate based on their how they navigate the grief.
Right.
So, if you will, I can go through the different stages. So
Yes.
some people deal with the denial. That is, okay, I can't believe that my loved one is gone. I can't
Is that
believe
the
that
first stage?
it's the first stage.
Okay. Okay.
The anger, I can be angry with the individual. I may be
Mm-hmm.
angry with the situation. Some people, depending on spiritual, religious context, they may
Mm-hmm.
be angry with God.
Mm-hmm.
They may be angry with themselves, but that can also bleed over into the guilt.
Okay.
I may feel guilty. We also have the bargaining. If I had done XYZ, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Maybe, that wouldn't have happened. Maybe if I had, been with them, maybe if I had spent more time. Also the acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
trying to accept what has happened. Um, the most important thing about the grieving process, as I kind of mentioned earlier, is to realize it's not a linear process.
Okay. Okay.
It's cyclical, and it can generally occur over and over again. And many other stages overlap.
Wow. Okay. So is acceptance the last
Yes.
stage?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Over
Mhm.
and over again. So let's start out with denial. First, I
Mhm.
want to ask you: does everyone who goes through the grieving stages, does everyone go through denial? It's okay, all right, okay. And why is that? Is it just our makeup, or is it the reason a person may have passed away? Why is that?
It may be the cause of death. It may
Mm-hmm.
be the relationship with the individual. It can be a number of reasons
Okay.
that that dictates where you are in your grieving process. It
Okay.
may also be a person's spiritual belief.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a number of factors that dictate how we navigate our grieving process.
Okay, I got you. Because when you think about denial, I just want to go there quickly about a person's spiritual belief. So kind of explain that for me. Like, if is it because, like, if you from the Christian background, should you not grieve because that means that you have a lack of trust in God? What are some of the things that you have experienced or have come to you as a therapist?
Very big topic in the religious community,
Okay.
because oftentimes we will hear, well, as Christians, as believers, we should not grieve, or, it's not, Christian like to grieve,
Mm-hmm.
which is not so. It is saying, essentially, I don't want to give a Bible lesson, but, you
Okay.
don't mourn or as somebody without faith,
Right.
but it is human to grieve. It is human to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
But, what is being brought to us is, you should understand that God is your comfort, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
wherever your comfort comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what happens also from the clinical side, what we've seen, people that have a source of spiritual support or
Mm-hmm.
understanding, they tend to be more resilient in
Okay.
how they grieve, how they navigate grief.
That's really good. That's really good. And I'm glad you brought that up because, I know, some people, and just thinking about when I went, and took, my certification courses for chaplaincy, we kind of talked about being stuck in the different stages.
Mhm.
So I kind of want to talk about that as well. And I know that, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and the triune God, his son and Holy Spirit. So I do believe that there is a supernatural power that God has given us to be able to, be resilient. And that's not just saying that, we're not going to cry. And I love how you said it. People do say, you shouldn't cry. And then I think it's cultural as well, because, you look at different
Mhm.
cultures and they react in different ways. But at the
Mhm.
same time, Jesus wept when his friend, Lazarus died. So I think it's important that people know that it is okay to grieve. And I know I hear this a lot as well before we go to, getting stuck about how long, a person should grieve, and you shouldn't tell a person how long they should grieve. So you want to touch on that for a minute?
Absolutely. My biggest pet peeve in therapy is, do not rush yourself through the grieving process. Do not try to skip the process. And anyone that has ever worked with me in therapy, the one thing I always say to them, do not try to run from your grief, because grief always has an address.
That's good.
Yes.
Okay.
Um, I have worked with clients, elderly clients, that they have come to me for therapy for other reasons, but it's led back to losses that they were grieving from childhood that were never dealt with.
That's good.
So
Yes.
it's met them right back. Grief
Mm-hmm.
doesn't leave us.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be there, and it's gonna impact your life over time in different
Mm-hmm.
ways.
Okay.
So
And that's
you,
if you don't deal with it properly.
if it's not dealt with properly, and in our community, unfortunately, we have been taught, not only in our community, in, just in this culture, okay, speed it up, get over it. Even in the workplace, what do they give you? 3 days. Okay, let's wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible.
Right, 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 right. Yeah,
you know so
yeah.
you kind of have to be realistic in understanding that grief does not operate on your timeline. It's a
Mm-hmm.
process, and whether you want to speed it up, or whether whoever wants to speed it up for you, it's not on a calendar for you.
That's good. I'm
Mhm.
just still taking notes about it has an address. Could you say that
It,
again for me?
grief does not have an address. It will show up on your doorstep when you don't want it to.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
that's right. All right, yeah. Because like you said, we can't run from it. You know, we're all going to experience some type of loss. Um, so, you know, I did want to kind of get into we're still at denial, but I want to get like where you're stuck. Unless you let me know. Do you want to go through the stages? Because we have anger, and the others that we can go through. But I do want to get to being stuck. Some people are stuck at denial, you know, and just can't believe it happens. Like I know some people, loved ones where, you know, we've had loss in the family and they're stuck, you know, and people, then I've known people that's been stuck for years. I mean, like I recently, I would say, my closest family member that I've lost was my sister, and that was 3 years ago. And it's nothing but, you know, the grace of God and the strength that God has given me, to be able to, you know, understand that, you know, she is, you know, in a better place. Actually, I look at it like this: she's in the place that I'm trying to get to, you know, and prayerfully, you know, everyone can say that testimony. But my thing is, it does hurt. But then you have some people where it hurts a little deeper than others. That was my sister. But what about the parents? You know, can we talk about, you know, when a parent loses their child or when a child loses their parent? Let's talk about that right quick.
Okay. Do you want to talk about it? Are we talking about the aspect of being stuck or parental loss?
Due to parental loss and being stuck. Parental loss
Okay.
and then being stuck.
Okay. So parental loss and being stuck. Of course, that is I've never experienced it, so I can't speak from that aspect. I can only speak from what clients have told me. It is one of the deeper losses, the intensity, because this is essentially a child you've carried,
Right.
you know, from birth. You've been with this child forever. The bond is different from any other bond. A lot of parents are stuck, so that means that my life is at a standstill. I don't know how to integrate my life from this point moving forward. You see some parents, when we say integrate, that means you will see them, you know, they can't go back to work. They have a difficulty with normalizing their life following the loss.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say normalize, I want to be clear. We have to understand, when you go through a loss so significant, your life will never be the same.
Right.
It is a new normal.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we speak of grief and loss, normal, healthy grief means that I am able to integrate into my new life in
Mm-hmm.
a way that I'm able to function.
Mm-hmm.
It does not impede my ability to work, go to school, function with
Mm-hmm.
socially.
Right. Right.
Does it mean I have to do it 2 weeks after? It's not. That's not what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do look at timelines in the clinical world to determine, is this something we need to look at, and
Mm-hmm.
to see if the person may need help, kind of, you know, processing the grief.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we also look at things like, are they obsessed with the loss of the person? Is it impacting their mental state
Mm-hmm.
to the point that they won't be able to even function? Because there is such a thing as, unfortunately, we probably heard this before, dying of heartbreak.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And we that's something we don't talk about enough,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because some people grieve so intensely, until the grief impacts their health.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at that as, complicated grief or prolonged grief.
Okay.
So if it goes past 12 months, and when I say 12 months, that doesn't mean like after 12 months, I can't cry about my child. I can't cry about my parent. That's not what we're talking about. It
Mm-hmm.
means that I'm stuck in the bed. I can't go to work. I am just not functioning on a certain level. And of course, as clinicians, we look at certain variables to determine, is this something we need to explore more?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that I do discuss with a lot of the clients, how are you socially? How are you interacting with your peers? How are you interacting with family members? What is your work situation like? Do you How are you getting along at work? How's your cognitive functioning? Is it impacting your sleep? Is it
Mm-hmm.
impacting your diet? Things like that. If it's impeding on any area of your activity of daily living,
Yes.
then it's something maybe we need to explore.
Okay. That's good. That's really, really good. And I believe that's, that's what's common. That's pretty much what's common. I mean, you do have people that, realize that, I'm stuck, I need some help. But then you have others that feel like, this is just the way it is. And, I just can't get over it and refuse, to seek out counseling. So wow, it's loaded right here. So when you said that complicated grief, like, and you can't tell a person how long to grieve, I completely agree with that. But what do you tell your clients or someone that comes to you and say, I know someone who needs help that does not yet want that assistance? What do you tell them to kind of encourage them to go and seek help? And what kind of help are they seeking?
They can offer the help, but it's not something that can be forced.
Right.
On average, believe it or not, most people don't go for grief therapy immediately.
Right. Okay.
I
Okay.
Most of the clients that I've seen, they come a year after a loss. Some clients a couple of years, because I thought I could manage it. I thought that, I'd be okay. But I'm realizing it's impacting other areas of my life. And
Hmm.
now I see, everything crashing down, and I know that this is where it comes from.
Right. Okay. All right. So, like a person like me that has been in therapy, for I would say the past 8 years,
Mhm.
um, I would be one that probably would be proactive if I felt myself like just losing, my ability to process, the grief and not being able to function and have that normalcy, back in my life, activities of daily living. You
Mhm.
talked about that, sleeping too much. I'm gonna pick up the phone and I'm gonna be like, oh, I need some help. But what about those people? And I mean, I'm talking about, I'm not gonna wait a year because I
Mhm.
know this is just not me. It's too much to bear. I can't be the wife I need to be. I can't be the employee that I need to be. I cannot be, God's servant that I need to be. So I need some help. And it could be after 3 months. What do you say? What would you say to that person?
Well, oftentimes we can make a suggestion. In your case, you've been through therapy, you've had the experience. So for you, it would be easy to make the suggestion because you have experience to offer to the individual. And it
Right.
would be less like I'm trying to force you and more like, hey, I've been here. You should try it because it will make it easier. Because
Mm-hmm.
often in our community, we tend to steer away from mental health services because of the stigma, because of what we heard, because of what we think
Mm-hmm.
therapy looks like. And also because a lot of times, the services or the providers don't look like us, and we don't believe
That's
that
good.
they understand us. And guess what? Often they don't,
Mm-hmm.
because the experience can often be different.
Right.
Yes, grief is the same across the board, but we know that sometimes our experience can look different.
Right. It could look different. Right. So, those that may come and just do some sniffling, at a funeral and don't talk about it anymore doesn't mean that they're not grieving. But then you have the theatrics, because of culture, and all of that. So, yeah, I definitely wanted to. Anything else that you want to say about a person losing their child? Because I do want to move on to, when you lose a parent. And I'm not sure, if there's a difference, with losing a child and losing a parent, but I do want us to go there.
I think there can be a difference, because with parents, we always have the notion that parents should outlive the child.
Hmm.
But also, guess what? I think that losing a parent kind of sends you, I've never lost a parent,
Right.
but um, from the experience of others, it kind of sends you into this zone that you're kind of never free of.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I've heard people kind of describe it as like you get catapulted into like this matrix.
Okay. Okay. So
And
describe that. Describe that.
well, I can't really describe it. It's something, it's almost like you're just catapulted in this space that you can never escape,
Wow. Wow.
because other people, they won't understand, because unless they've been through it, but it's an emotional state that I can't express.
Hmm. Hmm.
On the other hand, losing a child, and it may feel very much similar, but losing a child, that's also intense, because guess what? I've lost a child. Most people believe I'm supposed to outlive my child.
Hmm.
I can't live
Hmm.
without my child.
Right.
So a whole nother set of circumstances, thoughts, and emotions arise behind that.
Hmm. Yeah. It's almost like what you were talking about, stigmas. It's like it's not a stigma, but it's more like um cultural, where people say that, a parent, because I've heard a parent should never ever have to bury their child, and we don't really know God's plan. And it happens every single day, probably, I'm sure every minute, it is happening. So we want to be able to help, those that are, stuck or grieving, and it's becoming overwhelming. Hold on one second. We have a question here. Have you ever seen where the death of a loved one or the manner of death has caused the loved one to become fearful? Oh, that's real good. Of others, or paranoid? Could this could this be a result of unhealthy grieving? That's real good.
Absolutely. And that's also what we call a stuck point, because I can not trust the world around me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So absolutely, it happens more often than you think, because the other part of it is I don't believe I can trust the society around me. Sometimes I don't feel like I can trust myself, because I was not able to protect my loved one.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So they have those fears, um, because, and the paranoia. Now, what would a paranoia come in at?
because I'm paranoid about people. I don't trust people. I'm
Okay.
afraid that happened to my loved one. It could also happen to me. And guess what? If I am unable to protect my loved one, what can I do for myself?
Gotcha.
I feel
Wow.
I'm weak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow. So what about like, and I guess that would go up under fear. So you have a loved one to pass, and that loved one may have had a health condition. So will it be like fear that I may pass, the same way because my loved one, passed that way? Do you deal with that as well?
Absolutely. You have, say for instance, I know individuals that maybe they had a parent to pass away. Maybe the
Mm-hmm.
parent passed away in their 40s. So guess
Mm-hmm.
what? I'm in my 20s. Every
Mm-hmm.
year I have a birthday, I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to make it to this age? And then when I make it to the age, how many years after this age am I going to live? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's a constant fear that, okay, I saw this age, my father, my mother, they lived to that age. How many years will I survive after that? Because
Mm-hmm.
I am thinking I'm going to have the same fate.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So I want to ask, what would you tell that client?
Well, we actually work on a technique that's called cognitive processing, and with that, we actually work on stuck points. And some of what we include is some of the questioning. That is where you actually put your thoughts on. It's like putting your thoughts on on the court
Okay.
the court stand. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just really realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, we don't really dictate the course of our life. It's really up to life circumstances and God. Anything can happen, but just because it happened to the loved one, is that necessarily what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we begin with the overthinking. So what we do in working to answer like one of the questions that somebody just put up, working with the individual to redirect their thinking and to, instead of the negative thinking and thinking that, okay, this is going to happen to me, replacing the thoughts with other thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like
just
positive thinking. Mm-hmm.
positive thoughts, reframing the thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
because the mindset should be, who's to say that could happen? Is it fact?
Mm-hmm.
What are you basing these thoughts on?
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, we definitely got to look at, facts. What would you say in terms of the parent? Because we just went over the parents. So now they're feeling like, I didn't protect my child, or, they have, the anxiety and the fear and feel stuck. What would be your recommendation for that parent?
Again, working on some of the cognitive based techniques, the reconditioning, trying to get them to reframe their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we can't control. We
Mm-hmm.
can't control what happens outside. So are your thoughts really, are they fact based?
Mm-hmm.
What's the chances of these things happening?
Right.
But also, we have to operate in reality. And that's just that's the reality of it. If we
Right.
operate in reality, what is the ratio that this will occur?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You create an opportunity for them to put themselves on the stand and ask themselves the question,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
what's the possibility?
Okay.
And oftentimes they find the likelihood is non-existent or very low.
Okay. Now, what about those that may be struggling with a mental health condition and does not rationalize like the normal, you know, I'm not going to say normal. I want to say does not rationalize like the individual that does not have a mental health condition. So what would you say to that client?
Expound on that a little bit.
Okay, so you have a client that have a mental health condition,
Mhm.
and it impedes upon them thinking clearly, them being able to articulate their thoughts, their understanding, and they're trying to get through the loss of a parent, because that parent was their caregiver, their caretaker. So they're trying to get through that, and then we put them on the stand, and it's like, and I'm saying this because we may have some viewers out there that may be in that situation. We put them on the stand, and they really cannot come up with the reality, because their reality is that my caretaker has
Mm.
to be here for the rest of my life.
Mm.
That's my breath, that's my life. So what would be your recommendation for that client?
Well, for a client in that circumstance, first and foremost, you're going to have to deal with the status of the mental health condition that's predominant,
Okay.
because that's something that's going to be pre-existent always. And
Okay.
so we have to make sure that whatever the diagnosis is that was pre-existing, the loss is cared for and the client is stable. Once we have that under wraps, then you can address the loss,
Okay.
and you that's going to be determined according to the diagnosis of the client,
Okay.
because
Okay.
that's going to also determine like the techniques you use. That's going to determine your approach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Have you ever experienced that before?
I have not.
Grief and loss. Okay. All right. Okay, so now I want to ask, and I mean, we still on denial, right? But this is good. Now I want to ask, what happens, or what do you recommend when you're in a situation where you just lost someone, and it could be a parent, child, or very close loved one, and you are forced to over, like, pretty much overlook the need and your need to be able to grieve, because now something else catastrophic has come up in your life. So
Mm,
you just lost someone. Now you have something catastrophic that has come up that you have to deal with, and you haven't even had a chance to grieve, the loss of the loved one. What are your recommendations?
very common. Sometimes we have to take time and address the grief, because in that regard, what happens is you end up having to deal with complicated grief,
Okay.
or it can turn into PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
It actually
That's
can.
good.
And we experienced a lot of that during COVID,
Okay.
tons of it during COVID.
Okay.
Um, Compounded grief, multiple losses,
Mm-hmm.
overlapping grief. So that is a perfect example of a scenario of that sort.
Okay. So give me, I mean, because I want you to kind of paint the picture for me, because I mean,
Mhm.
that hasn't happened, to me, but I do, know someone, actually a loved one, that has occurred with, and it's difficult. So, when you say complicated grief or compounded grief, and you said that they have to take some time to deal with the grief, what is time? Because, like, say for example, my loved one, they have to focus on, which is kind of a loss as well, because they have someone where they've had some catastrophe, major catastrophe in their life, and it is losing that person from what they used to be. So now
Mm.
we have, like you said, multiple grief. So how do they find that time to deal with, like, both of the losses? Or
It-
how would you recommend them finding time, whether it's time away? Tell me, what would be your recommendation?
it's often very difficult, but seeking therapy, seeking support. I think one of the biggest factors that we often dismiss in healing
Mm-hmm.
during grief and loss is the support system. You have to have a strong support system.
Okay,
But
that's
a lot
good.
of times we don't utilize the support system because we don't want to bother people. Or we
Mm-hmm.
just figure like, hey, I just got to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's also, it can be a trauma response in a sense, because I'm almost like trying to disregard or ignore what I'm going through, but we have to address what's going on. So in that regard, yes, I need to use my support system. I need to be able to verbalize what's going on with me so that the people around me can be a source of strength for me as well and understand what I have going on. Seeking support groups,
Mm-hmm.
another underutilized resource in our community. We tend to not like support groups, but
Mm-hmm.
understanding experiences of others that have shared experiences, it's a great mobilizer for grief.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah, it's almost like a stigma as well,
Yeah.
that's attached to going to support groups. And when you say in our community, are you referring to the Black community?
Yes.
Okay.
African
Okay.
American. It.
Mm-hmm.
I will be honest. People of color, um, brown people, period, from not only just African American, just minorities.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
think in our society, we have become a society of hurry up. We live in a microwave society, like I mentioned earlier, and everything is rush, rush, rush. So we tend to neglect ourselves. We tend
Mm-hmm.
to neglect the mental health and emotional states, but we don't realize again the impact that it has on the physical health. But
Mm-hmm.
the mental and emotional is a part of your overall health.
Absolutely. That's right. And it's very important. It's just like the hub of everything. So I'm so loving this. So let's go to the anger.
Mhm.
So you've gotten past the denial. Now you're angry. And I'm not gonna say, should I say gotten past the denial? Because it may can actually overlap, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now you're moving into anger. What would you recommend to that client that is in the anger stage?
Well, I mean, all of the stages, I recommend the same things, but a lot of it has to do with seeking the therapy, getting the help,
Yeah.
acknowledging the loss,
Mm-hmm.
being able to verbalize, being able to express yourself, being
Yes.
able to, give it a name,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
make meaning of the loss. Those are all important factors in helping ourselves navigate the grief. So we're not doing any of those things. We're going to constantly be in this back and forth, or, basically going through these waves in terms of our losses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. So, and then you have the guilt.
Mhm.
And you kind of went over that as well. It's my fault because this, or this could be my fault and I wish I would have done this and that. And is that so? What is the difference between the guilt and a bargaining?
Well,
Oh,
the,
you should
the
have taken
guilt,
me.
I'm
I'm sorry, go
sorry.
ahead. I was saying, is it like you should have taken me instead, or?
Yes, yes. The guilt is, I feel guilty for maybe not being there, or maybe I feel guilty because had I been there, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Now the bargaining, it can also be, maybe if I was a better kid, I wouldn't have lost my parent. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
if I was better to my loved one, they wouldn't have gotten sick and passed away. Things of that nature.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's really good. And then acceptance. So now that you've accepted, that the loss of your loved one, and is it possible? I think you said it earlier. Is possible to? Can you go back from acceptance to denial
You
all
can.
over
I can
again?
accept that my loved one is gone, but does it mean that I'm not going to be angry?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I can know that my loved one is gone and still feel like, man, if I had been there, my loved one would still be here.
Right, 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 right. So I want to talk about loss of a relationship quickly because we don't have much time. We talked about a lot, so thank you so much. But I want to talk about loss of a relationship. I kind of hit on one relationship, like if you have someone that, whether it's a family member or someone that you are very close to, and they've had a catastrophic event to happen, that can be one loss. But then you have like some other losses where you lose a best friend, you've lost a job. How do we navigate, that process or through that process?
Well, a couple of things. It's, understanding that we have to now set boundaries. We have to accept the loss. We have to now learn to live a new normal. Some people have to change their idea of the fact that the possibilities that we once thought existed may not exist. People often live based on the possibility, or what we may say is the fantasy of. Sometimes we have to get rid of the idea of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And one way to do that is by setting the boundary, distancing ourselves from the situation, so that we are not, constantly exposing ourselves to the thing that is causing us the grief.
Okay. Okay. That's good. I believe in setting boundaries, and protecting that mental health,
Mhm.
is so important. So something else you said was accepting that loss. And earlier on, we were talking about the difference between grieving the loss of a relationship and grieving the loss of someone who is no longer here. And in terms of the person that is still here, it's a possibility that you may gain that relationship, again, or you may not.
Mhm.
So do you deal with clients that or have clients that come with loss of relationship issues, um, loss of jobs, like we talked about the pandemic, we're in a time now where people have lost their jobs, that work for the federal government. What do we say to those individuals?
Well, in scenarios of that nature, you do have to again have individuals deal fact based.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, you know, for me, I believe in having the client to place themselves in the seat of being the professional, because yes, I am the one that I have the training, I have the education, but in terms of your life, you're the professional.
mm-hmm,
So oftentimes what happens is individuals, when they come to any professional, they know the truth. So it's oftentimes bringing them to a place where they're transparent about the situation. And
mm-hmm,
it's just a matter of, asking them the tough questions and bringing them to that place that, hey, you know, let's kind of dig deeper. Let's kind of, tear this narrative apart and discuss. And
mm-hmm,
by the time we, rip the narrative apart and we kind of put the pieces to the puzzle together, then, sometimes I can see clearer. A lot of times they just need help seeing it from the other perspective. They already know what direction they're going, what needs to happen. They just need the help to kind of like a push.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's really good. So I was working for the federal government
Mhm.
for 20, 30 years, and and I'm feeling like, I don't have the skills to get another job. And I am like really stuck in the denial. Um, so what I need to do is now look back, and look at the profession, like me being the professional of my life.
Mhm.
And now I need to talk through, some things with a therapist.
Mhm.
And then we come up with a solution. So what would be my tool or resource that you would, give me? I mean, I kind of know because I'm an HR person, but if
Mhm.
it wasn't a job, what is that resource that, you could give me? Because this is the only job I know. I can't do anything else. I'm saying that, but I'm even thinking it came to my mind about even when we talk about loss of loved ones. And let
Mhm.
me just say this, because you have some people that have been in marriages 50, 40, and 50 years, and
Yep.
they lose a loved one and they don't know how to do absolutely anything. And I've seen that happen over the course of my career, where you have people that may have gotten married, and they were 18, 19 years old, and the man was
Yeah.
the breadwinner. They were the ones that wrote out the checks, and then vice versa. How do I just move on?
Well, that goes back to what I kind of discussed earlier, where you see a lot of people dying of
Hard.
heartbreak,
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
and a lot of them don't know how to function. And that also ties into having the support system.
Hmm. Hmm.
But you do have a lot of, we're here in South Florida. You have a lot of elderly people. They don't have strong support systems.
Right.
So, as somebody in advocacy, we often give them resources in the community that can be helpful for them.
Okay.
That's often the best route to go. Other than that, it's often difficult. Sometimes, yes. Do you have a church family? Do you
Hmm.
have neighbors that you're close with? Just trying to pick apart the people in their lives that may be instrumental in helping hold them together.
Right.
Because you're
Right.
right, a lot of them don't have another person.
Right. Exactly.
And a lot
Yeah.
of them die because of that, from
Yeah.
loneliness.
Okay. Okay. Just from the loneliness. So would that fall under heartbreak
Well,
or loneliness?
some of it is
Is that separate?
loneliness, but what happens is the loneliness can send you in a spiral. It can perpetuate other health problems.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Same as heartbreak as well, right?
all of it. Another thing that a lot of times we tend to not recognize is grief is traumatic. Any type of trauma is going to perpetuate health concerns. So we know in our community, we have large numbers of what? High blood pressure,
Right.
heart concerns.
Diabetes. Mm-hmm.
What else? What's another very big thing?
Diabetes, overweight, mental health, conditions. What else?
Dementia and Alzheimer's. It is
Yeah.
linked to trauma.
Wow.
Yes. And a lot of people don't understand the link, but it is absolutely linked to trauma. A lot of that trauma is linked to grief and loss.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
So would you say that those that may have, even younger people that may not have had a father or mother, like a parental a parent, in their lives, would you say that they could be dealing with um, like trauma just from not having, that person in their life?
Absolutely,
Grief
because loss.
and loss.
Absolutely, because loss is it's also one of those relative things, because I can grieve possibilities. I can grieve the life I thought I should have had.
Okay. Grief.
I
Did you
can
say
grieve
possibilities?
the possibilities of the
Good.
life I could have had.
Okay.
If I was raised different,
Hmm.
maybe I would have turned out different. If I had, a mother and father, maybe this wouldn't have been my experience. So grief is one of those things that we can kind of use as a template for many things in our lives.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
all about perspective.
Okay. That's really good. Wow. And we are at a little over an hour. Wow, that's really good information. So I would really recommend anyone who's watching, please share this with others. It is so important. I'm really big on therapy. I like what Dr. Godfrey has gone over, Dr. Donna has gone over. We talked about the different stages. We talked about it can occur over and over again. We talked about not running from grief because it doesn't or does have an address. It
It
doesn't
does.
have an address. It doesn't have an address. So it will knock on your door one day, and you don't want to run from it. We talked about being able to normalize your life, and you may not be able to do it on your own, and that's really good. The information that she gave, that you may need that support group. I'm a firm believer that it's important that you don't isolate yourselves. That, I believe that if it was God's will for us to be on earth, he would not have given Eve to Adam. He said that it wasn't good for man to be alone. So it is important. We're not an island. We should not be out by ourselves. So that support is really good. I can say the things that I've gone through, if I didn't have support, even if it was just that one person, in my
Mhm.
life, whom, I really, at, one point in my life, my best friend, my mentor, my pastor, I mean, really was there. And then in other times in life, you have your other family members, that may have been there. And it's okay, and sometimes support from others it may look different in different situations. Can you attest to that?
Absolutely. Support is not always, having, tons of people around. It
Hmm.
can be that one person that, guess what? I may just send a text message in the morning that is very uplifting, because maybe I'm, having a hard time that morning. It does look very different. Some people may tie support with financial. It may not be financial. It may just be, I need you to just come sit with me.
Right. Yeah.
I don't really need your advice. I just
Hmm.
need you to
That's
sit with
good.
me.
Right.
Yeah.
Just need someone to listen, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Someone just asked the question. I know you had mentioned it earlier, but someone, I mean, this was like in the very, very beginning, so they may not have been on, but just, is grieving possibilities healthy?
Is
Grieving healthy?
absolutely, it
Yeah.
is healthy. It's human. We
Hmm.
have to go through it. And so we have to understand that, we shouldn't fight it, because when we fight it, that's when it's unhealthy.
Hmm. Hmm. Good, good. And we talked about complicated or prolonged grief. And I think we kind of went into that, not being able to have the activities of daily living, your normal, activities of daily living, getting up, taking a bath, sleeping all day, can't cook, can't drive, can't go to work, can't take care of yourself. And and then I know that can lead to depression. So we talked about that in prolonged grief, where it's just going to go on and on. So I think, you pretty much have said this. I just want to make sure that you attest to me saying, if you don't deal with the grief, it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. And one thing I did, I want to mention that I didn't throw in, sometimes, grief can, mimic forms of psychosis. It can
Mm,
actually lead to forms of psychosis.
right, right, right.
So that's another reason why we have to be careful with how we respect or pay attention to our grief. You absolutely have to respect your emotional state.
That's really good. So, what are some of the forms of psychosis that would be manifested?
Hallucinations. You may have hallucinations, hearing voices, auditory. You may feel as though you're seeing the individual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear that a lot. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Is that hallucinating when you feel like you saw that person? What is that considered from a clinical standpoint when you feel like you saw a person?
It could be, but a lot of times people are having dreams,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but sometimes
It's okay to say it. It's okay.
I you know a lot of times we have we've heard, oh, that person came to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'll say, what do you mean they came to you? I saw them last night. So, in our community, it is a thing that they've seen the
Mm-hmm.
individual. But oftentimes they're just dreaming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what about the ones that say, well, I was awake and I know that they were there? Or the ones that say, I smelt that person?
Now that's a form of a hallucination.
Okay. Okay.
But it could be sometimes when your mind is in a certain state, you believe.
Mm-hmm.
You're having ideations of, it's not that you really smell the person.
Right, 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 right. Okay. Okay.
It's
So
just
do
like if I know you wear a certain perfume and I think about you, I can envision or I can almost smell the cologne or the perfume you're wearing. So
simply
am I
from a
really
mental
smell?
health standpoint, I mean, just mentally, you can, wow,
Yeah,
wow. The mind is powerful.
it absolutely is.
Yeah, the mind is powerful. That is really good. It was something that had come to mind, and I actually just lost my train of thought on it. So I hate that I did, but it had something to do with the manifestations, of grief, and some of the things that you tend to look for. I know what it was. It was, how do you know, like, say for example, a person just lost someone and they may be lashing out, they may just react erratically or something like that, have erratic behavior. Do you think that has to do, is that a possibility that it have to do with grief?
Oh, it can absolutely. It's a part of anger. One thing that I always go back to, I work also in a prison.
Mm-hmm.
Our prisons, our jails are
Mm-hmm.
full of individuals that have loaded histories
Mm-hmm.
of grief and loss.
Right.
Mental health, grief and loss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And our black males, they have been neglected in terms of the care that they've gotten when they've experienced losses, much of them at very young ages.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad,
So
and I promise you all that we're going to close this podcast soon. But I'm so glad that you mentioned males because for so long, it was, I think this myth that men shouldn't cry.
mhm.
What do you say about that, Dr. Donna?
Oh, I think that, what I tell everybody that knows me, everybody should be on a couch. You may
Mm-hmm.
not be on the couch for the same thing, but it's nothing wrong with therapy. Everyone should have the capacity or, the ability, not the capacity, the ability to just kind of unload, debrief, because life in itself is traumatic. It's
Mm-hmm.
very hard,
Mm-hmm.
living this life. And it's very easy to slip into a dark space. And a lot of times we just don't have the freedom to kind of, express ourselves for fear of being judged,
Mm-hmm.
so especially Black males.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, we can kind of do it, the Black females, because they just take us as angry Black females, or women, they take us as being emotional. But
Right.
yes, but males, it's unacceptable. When it comes to kids, they're also neglected in the
Mm-hmm.
grieving process. So that's
That's
a whole nother,
good.
yeah.
Oh my God, that is so good because we're so busy trying to, deal with the stages of grief as the parent and not realizing the children are hurting as well.
Mhm.
So in those cases, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's ab- absolutely true. I actually wrote an article during COVID in reference to that, because working in law enforcement
Mm-hmm.
on crime scenes, you'd always notice the kids are kind of, yes, we attend to the kids, but generally the parents don't even know what to do with the kids because they're trying to figure it out. And kids are often kind of like pushed to the side. We don't want them to hear what's going on. But guess what?
So
Those
true.
kids grow up and that grief grows up with them. Nobody ever talks to them. A lot of them will say, I never really knew what happened.
Wow, that's true. It's so true because you have also where they feel like they don't want kids at the funerals because they don't
Mhm.
want to upset the kids instead of kind of explaining what happened to grandmother or mother or whomever. That's really really good.
Yeah.
So oh my goodness, I wish we can go on, but so I'm going to have to invite you in person because this topic is just so good. So I encourage every chaplain out there, pastors. We actually have a new grieving program that will be coming up soon that will be available to the community as well. And just check us out on Oasis Church, intl.org for that information to all of the viewers. I want Dr. Donna to give her information just in case someone lives in the Broward area. Dr. Donna, do you do virtual therapy sessions?
I do. I'm not taking any new patients right now, but I will be glad if anyone wants to call me. I'll be glad to help them with resources and referrals.
Okay.
I have, I do have connections, but I'll be free. I feel free to get my information out.
Okay.
I
Okay.
will give it to you all.
Okay. Go ahead and give it. You can go ahead and give it. You can actually say it. Give your information.
Okay.
Yeah.
My number is 954 816-5304. My email address is calming storms SOFL@gmail.com.
Okay, that is awesome. All right. So, thank you so much, Dr. Donna. I got a lot of information from different aspects. I wish we could have got, even into loved ones that get incarcerated, and the loss. There's just so much, surrounded by grief. And I know you being in advocacy, working in advocacy as well. It's just, just so much that we can, unfold, from here. And I thank you so much for sharing, your expertise with us. I know you're a very shy person, unless someone is sitting on that sofa. But thank you so much for accepting. And again, that is Dr. Donna McCrea. If you would please put your information in the chat as well. But she has also verbally given her information. Common Storms LLC. She is in Broward County, Florida. And I encourage you all, just deal with the grief. I know we have a lot going on in our community, but you want to take a moment and take care of that mental health. Also, I have to say that NAMI Palm Beach County is always available resource as well. We do have support groups. There are times where, we talk about grief and have different classes on grief and loss as well. And, because ultimately it will affect your mental health, and we don't want that to happen. And Dr. D talked about, it affecting your mental health, which also affects your physical health as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And you can go back and watch it if you're just joining, or share it with someone else on our YouTube channel. And that's Oasis Church International. I'd like to thank my tech team for making this happen as well. And also you can visit oasischurchintl.org. And we're on Facebook as well. So thank you so much. You all be blessed. Thank you, Dr. Donna.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.